When billionaire tech mogul Liu Zhihao vanished with $800 million, global authorities launched a relentless manhunt. But no one expected to find him hiding in plain sight as Liu Zhihao, quietly rebuilding a criminal empire in London's shadows. With Detective Emily Carter on his trail, and a network built by allies like Dr. Ivan Volkov and Jin Wei, the chase would expose not just fraud, but a hidden world of espionage, cybercrime, and betrayal. In 2021, China's corporate and political world was shaken by the sudden disappearance of Liu Zhihao, a billionaire tech tycoon who had once been hailed as a national innovator. At just 42 years old, Liu had become the face of China's booming surveillance industry. His company, Dragon Edge Technologies, was responsible for developing facial recognition systems used in airports, train stations, and even major cities. He had close ties to influential government figures, and was regularly featured in global business magazines. From the outside, Liu was a success story, a visionary leading China into a high-tech future. But behind the scenes, a storm had been brewing. A government audit launched early that year began to uncover irregularities in Dragon Edge Technologies' finances. Transactions worth hundreds of millions of yuan had been rerouted to offshore accounts. Money had vanished into shell companies in Hong Kong, Singapore, and the Cayman Islands. At first, investigators thought it was a case of financial mismanagement. But as they dug deeper, they discovered something much bigger: deliberate embezzlement, systematic fraud, and widespread corruption tied directly to Liu Zhihao himself. Authorities moved quickly to detain him, but Liu had vanished just 2 days before they arrived at his penthouse apartment in Shenzhen. His security team claimed not to know where he had gone. His private jet remained untouched. There was no record of any border crossing under his name. It was as if he had simply evaporated. Within 48 hours, Chinese authorities issued a nationwide warrant. Within a week, Interpol released a red notice, marking Liu as one of China's most wanted fugitives. The disappearance made headlines across Asia. News outlets speculated that Liu had either been kidnapped by rivals or quietly silenced by political enemies. Others believed he had gone into hiding with help from foreign intelligence agencies, given the sensitivity of the data his company controlled. There were even rumors that Liu had undergone plastic surgery and escaped through underground channels used by criminal syndicates. But no one had any proof, and no leads surfaced for months. Meanwhile, investors in Dragon Edge Technologies panicked. The company's stock plummeted. Several executives were arrested for aiding Liu's financial schemes. Entire projects were shut down overnight. The scandal reached China's highest offices, with some accusing regulatory bodies of ignoring red flags for years. Liu's vanishing act became a national embarrassment. It raised questions not just about corporate oversight, but also about how someone so deeply embedded in state security could disappear without a trace. Behind the scenes, international law enforcement agencies launched parallel investigations. British intelligence, the FBI, and Interpol began combing through Liu's known associates and business partners. Financial analysts tracked suspicious transactions across dozens of offshore banks. A global manhunt was underway, but Liu had left behind no digital footprint, no communication, and no pattern. Months passed, and hope of capturing him began to fade. To many, Liu Zhihao had pulled off the impossible, vanishing in a hyper-connected world he once helped design. But unknown to all, he was already laying the groundwork for a second life, far from the skyscrapers of Shenzhen, in a place no one thought to look. 3 months after Liu Zhihao's disappearance, a quiet buzz began to stir among intelligence circles in Europe. A man bearing a striking resemblance to Liu was seen entering a luxury penthouse in London's exclusive Mayfair district. The sighting, at first, was dismissed as coincidence. Liu's image had been splashed across international headlines for weeks, and the world was full of lookalikes. But this man was different. He avoided cameras, used side entrances, and never stayed in one location for too long. His presence sparked quiet curiosity, but no immediate action. Unbeknownst to most, Liu had entered the United Kingdom using a forged Malaysian passport under the name Liu Zhang. His arrival was planned with military precision. Before leaving China, he had orchestrated a complex escape route involving bribes, black market identity brokers, and secret surgeries. In a lawless clinic hidden deep within Eastern Europe, Liu had undergone facial reconstruction procedures, subtly altering the shape of his nose, jawline, and cheekbones. Even more surprisingly, he had undergone a rare vocal cord implant to permanently change the pitch and tone of his voice. It was a painful, months-long process, but one that paid off. By the time he stepped onto British soil, not even his closest business partners would have recognized him. Liu's transformation was more than physical. He changed the way he walked, shaved his head, and even wore custom-made contact lenses to alter his eye color. Every detail had been rehearsed. He paid in cash, avoided digital communication, and moved only at night. He lived under multiple identities, renting apartments through middlemen and using burner phones that were destroyed every week. He made it nearly impossible for anyone to trace his movements. Still, he couldn't completely erase the past. One of the first small cracks appeared in a luxury boutique on Bond Street. A CCTV camera captured a man purchasing a rare Swiss timepiece with cash. He kept his head low, wore sunglasses indoors, and didn't speak a word. The transaction would have gone unnoticed if not for a government-run AI program that scanned surveillance footage for high-risk individuals. The system flagged the footage due to a faint resemblance. What caught the analyst's eye wasn't the man's face, it was a birthmark just beneath his left cheekbone. In old photos of Liu Zhihao, that same mark appeared, faint but consistent. It was a microscopic detail, but it raised a red flag. The footage was passed to forensic analysts, who spent days comparing facial metrics and behavioral traits. While the results were inconclusive, the resemblance was too strong to ignore. British intelligence quietly reopened their files on Liu. Agents began monitoring property records, banking transactions, and immigration databases. Though Liu had taken extraordinary measures to remain hidden, the system he once designed to track others was beginning to turn against him. What no one realized yet was how deeply Liu had embedded himself into London's high society under new names and new roles. He was no longer a hunted man living in fear, he was building power again, from the shadows. Over the next 2 years, Liu Zhihao crafted a new life in the heart of London. He moved through the city like a ghost, never staying in one place too long, always keeping a layer of distance between himself and the outside world. Under the alias Liu Zhang, he adopted the lifestyle of a discreet foreign investor, one among many in the city's upper circles. Liu Zhi purchased high-end art, invested in cryptocurrency startups, and funneled large amounts of cash into real estate, all through a complex web of shell companies registered under names no one could trace back to him. What made Liu difficult to find was his mastery of control. He operated through layers of intermediaries, lawyers, brokers, and accountants who never met him in person. These agents were paid in unmarked bills or cryptocurrency, and were instructed to follow strict protocols. Even the luxury cars he used were leased through offshore trusts. His fingerprints, facial data, and digital trail were wiped clean. He was a man who no longer existed on paper. Yet for all his efforts, Liu couldn't let go of the instinct to lead. Despite the danger, he began rebuilding his criminal network. Through encrypted messaging apps and dark web servers, Liu started directing the flow of laundered money for other fugitives and corrupt officials seeking refuge abroad. He positioned himself as a silent broker, someone who could move cash across borders, erase identities, and purchase influence without ever being seen. Slowly, a secret empire began to grow beneath London's surface, held together by Liu's obsessive need for control. It was this compulsion that eventually drew attention. A task force within the UK's National Crime Agency had been monitoring a series of suspicious financial activities tied to high-value properties in London and Manchester. One particular case involved a dormant cryptocurrency account, suddenly coming to life with millions in movement. The digital trail led to a small firm in the British Virgin Islands, which in turn was linked to 3 anonymous purchases in the UK's real estate market. At first these connections seemed random, but one investigator noticed something odd. All of the properties had security features installed by the same obscure tech company. When the company's records were quietly obtained, investigators found encrypted emails that referenced a mysterious client known only as LZ. While the identity wasn't confirmed, patterns in the emails suggested someone with technical knowledge far beyond that of an ordinary investor. The vocabulary, the formatting, and the strategic thinking behind the instructions matched profiles developed on Liu Zhihao back in China. There was no hard evidence yet, but it was enough to convince authorities they were dealing with someone significant. The National Crime Agency created a classified profile labeled Target LZ. A joint operation was quietly formed, with support from Interpol and unofficial communication from Chinese intelligence. Every transaction, email and piece of surveillance data linked to this phantom investor was flagged and tracked. Liu's ability to remain invisible had begun to falter. The very systems he once manipulated for profit and protection were now aligning against him, inching closer every day. By early 2024, the net around Liu Zhihao had tightened, but still there was no definitive proof of his identity or location. The task force monitoring his activities had grown more sophisticated. Dozens of agents worked silently behind the scenes, mapping out Liu's network, isolating patterns, and setting digital traps. The problem wasn't just finding him, it was catching him in a way that would hold up in court. Liu had built an empire without fingerprints. Every move was through proxies, and every asset was shielded by legal complexity. Then came the breakthrough. An undercover asset, embedded within a crypto investment firm, flagged a meeting request from an anonymous client interested in offloading over £50 million in digital currency. The communication was precise, structured, and demanding, traits consistent with the previous profile of Liu. What made the request suspicious was that the client wanted the funds transferred to a private vault, registered under an alias previously linked to Liu's original escape route. The task force saw an opportunity. They created a false digital vault, an illusion of a secure cryptocurrency storage facility, complete with staged personnel, fake encryption systems, and a backstory that would stand up to scrutiny. It was the perfect bait. To trigger Liu's curiosity, they leaked subtle hints through dark web forums, where high-value clients looked for discreet laundering channels. Within days, the client responded, requesting an in-person inspection of the vault's setup. Arrangements were made for a private showing at a secluded estate just outside of Surrey. The location was chosen for its isolation and the ability to control surveillance without raising suspicion. Hidden cameras were installed throughout the premises. Facial scanning systems were embedded behind mirrors, and the entire estate was wired to alert the team the moment a match was confirmed. A full tactical team was stationed just minutes away, waiting for a signal. On a rainy March evening, a black armored SUV with tinted windows approached the estate. 3 men exited the vehicle, 2 bodyguards, and a third man wearing a long coat and surgical mask. He moved cautiously, but with confidence. He was scanned as he passed through the main entrance. The AI system silently ran his features through a secure facial recognition database. Within seconds, a match was made. Despite the altered face, the biometric patterns, ear shape, eye distance, walking gait, confirmed it. The man was Liu Zhihao. No alarms were triggered, no warnings given. Agents allowed Liu to enter the fake vault, inspecting what he believed was his next major laundering operation. As he reviewed the setup, encrypted signals were sent to the tactical team. In under 2 minutes, a black unmarked van pulled into the estate. Armed officers surrounded the building. Liu didn't resist. He turned calmly, understanding what had happened before anyone said a word. The arrest was swift, clinical, and silent. No news cameras, no media frenzy. For 3 years, Liu had managed to stay one step ahead of everyone. But in that moment, the man who once engineered systems to capture others had finally been captured by one of his own. Following Liu Zhihao's arrest, the full scale of his crimes began to emerge in disturbing detail. In the days after his capture, British authorities, working closely with Chinese and European intelligence agencies, began searching Liu's safe houses across the UK and parts of mainland Europe. What they found shocked even the most seasoned investigators. Hidden compartments within luxury apartments contained stacks of unregistered currency, gold bars, untraceable SIM cards, and encrypted hard drives. One location held shelves of forged passports and biometric disguises, each tailored to a different identity. But the most valuable discovery came from a small encrypted laptop seized during his arrest. After weeks of careful decryption, forensic analysts uncovered a network of offshore shell companies, digital wallets holding millions in cryptocurrency, and blueprints of international laundering operations. Liu hadn't just been hiding, he had been orchestrating a global system of financial crime from behind the scenes. His control extended far beyond his own escape. He had become a broker for dozens of high-profile fugitives, corrupt officials, white-collar criminals, and even ex-military defectors. For a price, Liu offered them clean identities, secure travel routes, and financial anonymity. In addition to the financial crimes, the files revealed a more sinister truth. Liu had been collecting sensitive data, corporate secrets, political intel, and even private information about influential figures across Europe and Asia. Some of this data appeared to have been obtained through cyber attacks on surveillance systems Liu once helped design. His former position at Dragon Edge Technologies had given him access to backdoors within global facial recognition networks, and he had used this access to monitor and manipulate his enemies. Among the documents were transcripts and payment records, suggesting Liu had facilitated at least 3 covert sabotage missions on behalf of unnamed clients. These operations included wiping clean the digital records of a Chinese whistleblower in Canada, disrupting a political campaign in Eastern Europe, and orchestrating the mysterious disappearance of a financial regulator in Southeast Asia. The evidence was overwhelming. Liu was no longer just a fugitive businessman, he had operated as the head of an underground intelligence and laundering empire. His extradition to China was executed quietly. Under heavy security and complete media blackout, Liu was flown back to Beijing, where he faced a closed trial. The Chinese government released only limited information, confirming his conviction for embezzlement, espionage, and subversion of state authority. He was sentenced to 40 years in a maximum security prison. No appeals were granted. No interviews allowed. Liu had gone from a tech magnate to a ghost, and now to a prisoner whose story would be buried beneath the weight of silence. In the UK, the investigation triggered sweeping reviews of financial regulations, especially surrounding anonymous property purchases and cryptocurrency transactions. New laws were proposed to close the loopholes Liu had exploited so masterfully. What made Liu's case so extraordinary wasn't just the scale of his crimes, but the fact that he managed to live in plain sight for so long, rebuilding power, manipulating systems, and nearly rewriting his identity from the ground up. His fall became a chilling reminder that even in an age of total surveillance, the most dangerous criminals are those who know exactly how the system works, because they built it.